Good morning and welcome to Southeastern 16. We got a lot of basketball to talk. It is feast week. The SEC's got a lot of games. Had one huge one that went down late last night, as you may have heard. Had some other interesting games in the SEC. I am your host, Chris Lee, at Southeastern 16, joined by Blake Lovell and Max Barr. Max, you look energetic, bright and early. Would you like to start us out?
No,
go ahead.
I would like to start because, Chris, we've got to get the energy, raise the energy here. The Auburn fans are in the chat. They're still partying in Maui, and you're just like giving this big suspenseful entrance here, all right? They want you to say WDE, Chris. Can you say it?
WDE. Well, see, I was going to throw it to Max.
You got to say the phrase.
Max looked like just his body language and his face looked like he was bringing more energy. So I was going to throw it to him first because I know you get like 3 hours of sleep on a given night anymore.
I mean, it is what it is. It's Maui. It's feast week.
Yeah.
We sleep in May. What are you talking about? So, all right, go ahead, Max.
Oh, I'll tell you what. Thank you, Matthew. Matthew hasn't gone to bed yet. Matthew's still he's going. He's running on the adrenaline from last night's comeback. Appreciate the $5. Auburn is running the table this year. Hey, after last night, you get headed. Look, they're going nuts in here already. Oh my gosh. 10 Eastern. Seems like it's 10 p.m. Hey, I was sitting in bed last night. I think it's about 12:30, 1 o'clock, and all I could think was, we better make this show about Chad Baker-Mazara, or I'm going to lose my mind. The knee game. The knee game. It's always something with this team. I'm loving it. Every time Auburn plays, we come back here on a live, and we have so much to talk about. Game all changed when Dylan Cardwell got pushed in the back there. Don't be pushing Dylan Cardwell into the front row of the bleachers. Look at what happens. You get a few buckets. You get a few. Oh, boy. What do we got? What did I just walk into?
All right.
What did I just walk into?
We're going to hear from Bruce Pearl before we continue here. Let's see what Bruce had to say about the victory.
Well, one of the things that we talk about with Auburn basketball is to try to make history. And we're very proud of the history of Auburn basketball and some of the great players like Charles Barkley or Chuck Person or great coaches like Sonny Smith and Cliff Ellis. And this is our second top 5 win in the non-conference in the history of Auburn basketball. Not since 1990, when Kansas did it, as a team started 5-0, including 2 top 5 wins. So to this point, we've made history.
History made.
History.
By the Auburn Tigers last night, folks. My goodness. What a win. Yeah, like you said, Max, if you go into the game itself, first of all, you don't do that to our guy Dylan Cardwell because he's going to hulk up, and we've seen that front and center before at the SEC tournament in Nashville. But, yeah, I mean, just a tremendous win because, you know, everybody's counting Auburn out, and we had our text thread as usual. Again, I think we need to charge admission to this text thread that we have sometimes because we bring it up so much. But some of the comments in there get interesting. But, you know, even when they're down, I'm thinking, I don't think this is over. I just could not see it kind of playing out that way. I knew Auburn was going to make a run. They did. And then, you know, you have some of those plays that are late in the game where you're thinking, oh, boy, of course they call the flagrant foul and those kind of things. You're wondering, is that going to be the one we look back on and think, wow, what a missed opportunity. But it's not. And, you know, it turns out they get the final possession. And then who else other than Mr. Do-It-All, Janai Broome, getting the tip in, a 21-point night, 10 rebounds, 2 blocks, 2 steals, 2 assists, 36 minutes, and the ultimate just, you know, grinder. I mean, this guy he does everything. But, listen, that was it wasn't just him, though, right? Like you said, it's the Chad Baker-Mazara game. Look at some of the big shots that were made by other guys, right? I mean, Pettiford had a big game with 14 and 19 minutes. Like, those kind of things, like, that's what it was going to take to beat another top 5 team. And like Bruce Pearl just said, They got 2 top 5 wins this year. So for anybody that wants to look at this, right, and think, why, we talked about Auburn being number 1 in our power rankings this week. Like, there's no reason to move them. They still, in our minds, had the best win of the season against Houston. Yes, you could debate the Kentucky win against Duke and those kind of things. But when you're looking at these 2 top 5 wins like they've had, it just, this early in the season, it doesn't get much better than this. And so just a tremendous win, sets up a huge game tonight at, who knows when that game will start. That game will start probably midnight Eastern based on how this tournament going. But huge game with the Tar Heels tonight.
2 things that stood out to me. Last year, the computers loved Auburn. The eye test, we liked them too. But there were 2 things that were kind of in the background all year that ended up maybe being part of Auburn's undoing. One was they beat the pulp out of bad to mediocre teams, but they didn't play a lot of good teams. And when they did, the results weren't great, and particularly away from Auburn. You have checked a lot of boxes in that area now with Auburn. I mean, and we're not even to December. Now, 2 top 5 wins, as they mentioned, both outside of Auburn. One, it was called semi-away, but who are we kidding? The game was in Houston. That was a road game. And now in Hawaii, I don't know how many, time zones and hours away from Auburn. So there's that. Number 2, my goodness. Cardwell had 4 fouls. Chad Baker-Mazara had 4 fouls. Chaney Johnson had 4 fouls. The latter in just 10 minutes. And they still beat a top probably 5 team in the country, guys.
Yeah, that's where the depth comes into play. I was just going to say that. I was going to go to Chaney Johnson. That was like the next area I was going to go to, not having him and then still finding the production elsewhere. I'm circling back around to Baker-Mazara again with that second half. I think we picked him what? Did we pick him second team, third team? So. Maybe it varied. But since Broom is on this team and the other guys are also so good, Baker-Mazara, I don't know why, but in my head, I don't think of him as like he is a top 10 player in the SEC, which we picked him as in the preseason. It just hasn't clicked yet for some reason. And then you see games like this where he's not on the court and you see how much they miss him. And then he comes back and how much he heads back into the team. It's just like I feel like we got to start reminding ourselves Chad Baker-Mazara is one of the 10 best players in this conference, and we got to start acting like it.
Max, it's a universal truth. Guys that do a lot of things well and maybe don't score 18, 20 a game are perpetually underrated. And that's why. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. I mean, he does a lot of things. I mean, we talked about the impact of not having him in the NCAA tournament game last year. And I think he just, again, he was the X factor we talked about so much last season when you mentioned, again, just some of the things that he does and what he can give them on both sides of the floor. And I know it was mentioned in the comments, just the link, too, of Auburn and, the physical play. Like, this is a team that is used to playing physical games. And, like, even when you get a situation like this where you get guys that are racking up fouls and those kind of things, still that they just find a way to use the depth and make it work. And I mean, like I said, this was just kind of a tale of, it's the roller coaster of, oh boy, like, man, it's not often you're going to see a situation where, unlike, of course, Carolina, who rallied for what they were down 22 against Dayton, North Carolina, that is. Apologies, South Carolina fans. They rallied for the 22-point, was that where they down 22 max against Dayton? Something like that.
I don't know.
I mean, Max was in bed. It's fine. That game was played until 3 a.m. this morning. But,
it was so late.
Still, but again, like, you're doing that against the top 5 teams a little bit different and doing it against Iowa. It's hard to come back like that. And so, yet, they still pulled it off. And, yeah, I mean, it does. It speaks to the depth of this team. And, you don't just need every guy scoring. That doesn't necessarily equate to just depth. It needs to be guys who are doing a little bit of everything. And Auburn has quite a few guys that just do a little bit of everything. And I think, that's why it's a team game. So their big star steps up, makes the biggest play at the end, but they are Yeah, I mean, just the physicality. I think someone else pointed out the aggressiveness. Like they're just an aggressive team. Maybe to a fault sometimes. Like you get a little too aggressive, get a couple fouls and those kind of things. But hey, 2 top 5 wins. They're sitting here, again setting up a matchup against North Carolina, and then who knows from there. And they still have the game against Duke coming up, next Wednesday. So. I mean, this is a tremendous run they could be going on here, and we said it yesterday. Like, look out if they were to put themselves in a position to win this tournament, which they're going to be the favorite against North Carolina tonight. And who knows after that? So,
2 things real quick. You mentioned Broom had the incredible play at the end, but that play wouldn't have even been possible if he didn't hit his second 3 when they were down 73-70. That play doesn't happen a year ago.
Leave it to Max Barr to make sure we do not forget anything about Janai Broom making a 3-point shot and or attempting
I texted these guys right away. I texted them right away.
We knew it was coming too.
Well, I wanted to give him props because that doesn't happen last year. I mean, he had it in the arsenal, but he's not taking that shot in that moment of the game down 3 with like 3 minutes left with a man in his face and nailing it. So it goes to show is.
You said it doesn't happen. I heard it happen at least once in the SEC tournament.
Were they down 3 to the top 5 team in the country with 2 minutes left?
Because Chris got on to you. That's why. Chris remembers that because he's over there playing the hall monitor when Max is getting excited about his 3-point prop going in. Come on, let the guy have some fun. It's the SEC tournament.
Let's go.
Come on.
Second thing. There is an elephant in the room here, folks. I saw the comments mention it. Say Auburn beats North Carolina tonight. Do they fall in Ken Palm again? I mean, what the heck is going on with that?
I know. I woke up this morning expecting to see them 1, and now they're 3 behind Houston, which they beat.
Are you kidding me?
There.
Wow, man. I thought this was I thought it told all. I just can't believe this.
Shocked.
I can't believe this is something that would even be considered. My goodness. How I mean, why are we even playing the games these days? So, wow.
Yeah.
Unreal.
To be fair, it is like a half-point difference between Auburn at 3 and Houston at 1. I mean, it's not even a half point, but anyway, carry on.
Interesting. Those half points, they'll get you. Well, the unfortunate news for Auburn, too, folks, and we're going to continue talking about a couple of things here. I'd like to preview North Carolina real quick before we get into everything else. But, you know, the unfortunate thing for Auburn is that, they are not ahead of a certain team in the defensive efficiency metrics these days. That's Arkansas, who got a big win last night. So Chris might actually rank Auburn behind Arkansas based on his methodology. But, Chris, before we do that, before we get into a little bit more Auburn, North Carolina preview tonight, quick thoughts, and then we'll get into Arkansas and their response to you from yesterday. There's something else we need to tell people about. If they want to, let's say, maybe put in a wager on the games that are going to be played tonight in Maui, because again, this game tonight, Auburn, North Carolina, may tip off tomorrow morning based on how these games have been going. If they want to wager on maybe Alabama and Houston, if you're an Auburn fan, you want to bet against the Tide tonight in Las Vegas. There's a place I know that you can do that. And no, it's not Ken Palm. It's somewhere else, Chris Lee.
That would be Bet Online. That would be the world's most trusted betting platform. That would be your number one source for online betting. Who's got the earliest odds to in-game live betting? Bet Online provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they begin. Max Barr, who's got the largest selection of odds on everything from football, NBA, college basketball? You get one guess.
Oh, no. Chris, you've completely frozen. We're assuming you're set up something for Max
Is he
to answer.
frozen?
So you're frozen. He's not.
Oh, great. This is a
What an
wonderful
ad
ad
read.
read.
Great.
That would be Bet Online. You can head there today, get in on all the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering.
Oh,
Game
good
starts
Lord.
here. My wife's working out of the house today. Should have known that was coming.
All right.
All
Well,
right.
in case you didn't get any of that, Bet Online, folks.
Yep.
Anyways, Max,
All right.
quick thoughts on this North Carolina matchup tonight.
Admittedly, on the East Coast here, did not watch that North Carolina Dayton game last night. So I'm just deducting from what I watched of the Kansas game. These guards are for real. They're no joke. And you might think that Auburn has a significant front court advantage, but from what I saw in the Kansas game, these North Carolina front court guys, Withers, and these guys know that they were getting disrespected all offseason, and they looked pretty good to me. I don't know about Dayton last night. Did you guys catch the Dayton game? Because I could be way off here.
Yeah, so, I mean, again, Dayton was up, I said 22 earlier, 21. Dayton's up 21 in the second half. And North Carolina rallied behind the guard play, as you said. What those three starting guards combined for, I think it was 67 points in that game last night.
Makes sense.
Of North Carolina's 92. So, yes, like those guys drove that for them. And I mean, that's the thing too. Like Dayton, you want to talk about a team that's just probably thinking, how did this happen? Like they went, guys, they shot 44% from three. They made 14 threes last night.
Shit.
And shot just a very fine percentage, a good percentage, and still lost that game. But North Carolina just willed their way back. And yeah, I mean, they shot 34 free throws, which, that's also something that I'm sure some Dayton fans will maybe pick apart a little bit. But yeah, I think this is, I mean, look, if we're talking depth, I just think Auburn's a deeper team. And when we get these kind of tournaments, I look at it from that standpoint. Both these teams played very emotionally draining games last night. And that's the thing. Like, if you're Auburn, you got to be thrilled with the way that game played out against Dayton. Because North Carolina riding the same high you are in terms of just, again, everything, like expending everything to make a comeback like that. And so you're both kind of on even footing here. But I think, Max, I looked at the line a little while ago. I think Auburn's 4.5-point favorite, something like that. So not shocked by that. I think that's about right. But if you can control the guard play, which Auburn, I think, defensively will need to do here, I think they should be in good shape.
Yeah, and how much of a factor does Chaney play? Coming off of probably his quietest game of the season so far in this breakout. And then who else was it for Auburn that didn't get in much last night? There was two of them. It was Chaney and Pegues.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, see, maybe in these games, like we always say, when maybe the legs are a little bit tired, who's stepping up in support that maybe can push him over the edge. So, be looking for Chaney and Pegues bounce back here.
Hudson finally got his get out of jail card.
He did.
And he's on his pledging period, it appears, with 4 minutes, but that might be one in reserve too.
Well, I think something too in this game, like it is like it comes down to the guard play. Like I really think that's it, because North Carolina's offense has been, again, what those guards can do. Like we saw, the numbers last night, right? What was it? I had it up earlier. Davis had 30, Trimble had 27. Yeah, so I mean that's the thing, is you just got to be able to, I think, guard those guys and not allow them the opportunity. And that's the thing, if they do use their fantastic skills, you're going to be coming into the paint against the Janai Broome and Dylan Cardwell and those guys. And I think that's where the physicality of Auburn in this game could either help or hurt, depending on the whistle, because again, North Carolina, I think, will find a way to get to the free throw line in this game. So I could see this being right now North Carolina gets 26.2% of their points from the free throw line. That's 19th in the country. So they're going to get to the line. I think you'll see a lot of free throws in this game. I'd be shocked if you don't, which, that advantage goes North Carolina in terms of percentages. But should be a close game. But, yeah, I think the depth maybe of Auburn is the difference here. We'll see.
Blake, in that Kansas game, North Carolina, Kansas, R.J. Davis from free throws, 9 of 11, Trimble, 10 of 10, Cadeau, 6 of 6. Yeah. That trio at the free throw line. Oh, boy. I don't like that.
Auburn's got to play discipline defensively in this game.
They do.
Got to.
Cannot get into foul trouble against these guards.
All right. Well, we'll circle back around. I'm sure there's some comments we'll find from Auburn. And again, guys, as usual, we'll get to your comments here in just a bit on anything you want to talk about. It doesn't have to be related to what happened in last night's games. We'll look ahead to tonight's games too. But before we do that, we got to circle back around to something that happened on Monday night, because there was a team yesterday in our power rankings. If you watch live here at Southeastern 16,
here we go,
live and in living color, there was a team that someone, we won't name names here, happened to be really down on. I mean, this person decided to rank this team about as far down as you could rank them. He didn't rank them last, but they were on down there. And so this team decided to come out and hold up the big middle finger to Chris Lee, as it was the Arkansas Razorbacks, who for many days now we've been talking about Mississippi Valley State. How do we compare scores with Mississippi Valley State and all this other stuff? Well, this time around we're going to go to the Maryland Eastern Shore comparison, because Arkansas scores a 109-35 victory last night in Fayetteville, Arkansas. A 74-point win for those of you doing math out there. Chris, I would like you to give me your thoughts on the 74-point win. 74 for the Arkansas Razorbacks. Vanderbilt played them to open the season. Maryland Eastern Shore, that is, the Hawks. They won by, 39, I believe. So, a 74-point win for your Razorbacks, Chris Lee.
Well, since the world of basketball relevancy apparently runs, according to one of us, through Mississippi Valley State and the University of Maryland Eastern Shore, that is UMES, not to be confused with UMass. And it is UMES. They are ranked, let's see, where in KenPom? 359. That's 5 from the bottom by my math. I know Blake's not great at math. I'm a little better at it.
74-point win. I got that one right.
They had, 7 guys in double figures. UMass shot 8 free throws. There's my wonderful
3 of 8
on the debacle in Fayetteville. That's
how
what
many
you sign up and pay for.
How many D1 teams has UMass beat this year, Chris?
I think that probably would be 0 without cheating.
Yeah. Hey, that was fun though. If you're a Razorback, fun little scrimmage. Go out there, shoot some hoops. I mean, what?
So, some would say that might not have a lot of meaning, but
Oh, shocker. Surprise that Chris doesn't see this as a meaningful game. You know what? I see it as a meaningful game. You know why? Because Illinois only beat them by 47. Murray State only beat them by 18. Penn, the Quakers, only beat them by a single point. So the Commodores beat them by 39. But I'll tell you it's meaningful for this reason. Because Arkansas did move up in your KenPom defensive efficiency rankings. The number 6 in the country now. So one of the best defensive teams in America are the Hogs. But the biggest development here was not just the fact that they had all these guys in double figures. John L. Davis, this man needed some confidence. We talked about that, and I don't care who they were playing. They could have played us 3 out there. And just some sort of positive momentum for him. We talked about that being very important right now because of the injury. We can tell, like, it's just something that's clearly still been an issue. But for him to get out, find a little bit of a groove here, 16 points, makes 4 threes, and like I said, I don't care who they're playing. Like, they needed something like this from him because he's the person still, I think, that if they're going to go, if they're going to be a team that has a much higher ceiling and ultimately is not looked at as just one of those more frustrating teams in the league this season, especially, if you're an Arkansas fan, just the inconsistencies, those kind of things, and the lack of depth, like we talked about it. If it's just not there, he's got to be the guy. And I still believe that. Yes, they've got, Boogie Flan's been fantastic. We know what DJ Wagner can do. Carter Knox had a big game here, 21 points. Richmond played well, but I still think it all comes back to John L. Davis. To me, he is the biggest piece of this thing that's going to help them get to where they want to go. So do we read a lot more into it other than that? We have our fun. Probably not with this game, but don't overlook that aspect because I think that's important here.
Well, to be fair, that my criticism of Arkansas was, what Arkansas team am I getting? I mean, I said if you've got all their guys healthy, then it's a different conversation. That just hasn't been the reality. to me, what's meaningful is the fact that Davis gave him 25 minutes, 5 assists to 1 turnover, scored some points. You saw Brazil back out there. You still didn't see Adu out there. But, I mean, that's movement in the right direction for 2 or 3 of what their 5 or 6 most important players. And so that's all kidding aside, that's probably where that was relevant, because when they get those guys back and healthy, then this is a very different conversation.
Yeah, got Illinois on Thursday, and Illinois wants to get their lick back on the SEC. That's gonna be a good matchup. That's gonna be a good matchup. The Illinois Arkansas. I like that matchup a lot with Jaku Chionis. I don't know how to say that last name, but Illinois is a fun team. That'll be a fun game. Well, I don't have much on this game.
No, I mean, again, we have our fun with this 74-point win, but like, this is like, what has Arkansas learned since the Baylor game? We find out on Thursday. Like, what have they been able to piece together? How far have they come, or how have they taken a step back? Like, this Illinois game will tell us something, because, as we said, we've seen Illinois play Alabama. The Tide just put up a lot of points in that game, but Illinois still, defensively is a good team, and we talked about kind of the matchup issues potentially for Alabama in that game. It didn't wind up mattering because you just had some big performances for the Tide there. But, yeah, I mean, honestly, when you look at kind of the profile of Illinois, we'll preview that game when we get closer, but that could be a game that's frustrating for Arkansas, like based off, offensively, because the team's got some size, they're going to defend, and so we'll get into that. But, yeah, so we'll see. But what else? South Carolina lost last night. Yeah.
Yep. Darn it.
Zach Fremantle. Too much.
Hey, it was looking good for a while.
It was.
It was looking good. It was a strong start. I was like, hey, Lamont hurt us. He's coming to get his lick back on us for doubting him, putting him at 16. But then things sputtered out there in the second half. Shots weren't falling. 4 of 17 from 3. Got to the free throw line a good amount, but when the shots aren't falling and you gotta hope late shot clock situation, Colin Murray Boyles can do something with you when he's got foul trouble. It's just a recipe for disaster. He's got to stay out of foul trouble. Colin Murray Boyles gets in foul trouble, the whole team's in foul trouble, basically. That might be an exaggeration, but they don't look good without him on the floor right now.
No, I mean, they're just not going to win many games unless he is, I think, double. Or I mean, I think that's like what you're going to have for them to win most games this year. And like you said, if he's in foul trouble, it's just, I don't think the overall, it's not even a thing of depth. It's just you don't have another player on the team that's like him. And it's as simple as that. Like, he is one of one, and that can be a good thing. It can be a bad thing when he's not on the floor. And so, this was always going to be a tough matchup. Like, in all honesty, we didn't discuss this game a whole lot yesterday, and it's probably because I just didn't really think this was a great matchup necessarily for South Carolina. They got off to a good start, but it couldn't hold. And I think that could be a theme that plays out like in SEC play too. Do I think South Carolina's going to come out and just get blown out by people? I don't. I think they'll be, right there in a lot of games, but it's just, I wish I could think of I know there was a team last year we kind of had it. It's not Missouri. I don't want to compare South Carolina to Missouri from last year because they didn't win a game. But you remember how many games Missouri would they'd either get a lead and it's like, well.
I think are you talking about Georgia?
Maybe it was Georgia. There was someone last year we talked about kind of in that same sort of thing, right? Where they were, I mean, Missouri probably wasn't that far off. We mentioned how many close games they played. But it's just they would get there and they're just right there and you're thinking, do they have that extra something? If they just had this or just had that. And that's where I think so much pressure will be on Colin Murray Boyles to be the this or that in every scenario where, I think they'll find themselves in close games this year. Just so far, the North Florida game, right? I mean, this game to a certain extent. Indiana game wasn't that close really, but it's just you want to see if they can pull it out. And I think like these next several games they're going to have, like they play Virginia Tech on Wednesday, right? I mean, Virginia Tech is,
that might be the worst Virginia Tech team in my whole life.
They're not very good. That's the best way to put it. South Carolina should beat them. And but that's another one of those games where would it shock you if it's close? Like if it's kind of a, going down to the final 4 minutes or something. And that's where you just want to see them build some confidence in these kind of settings, because I think that's what it's going to take if they're going to exceed expectations. I'm not even going to say like they did last year, because I just don't think that's going to happen. But if they can exceed the expectations for where they are now, I think that's what it's going to all be about. So
I think we're entering already, and I hate to say it already, but like must-win territory for South Carolina if they want a shot at making it to March. Because you look at the opportunities left heading into conference play, it's pretty much like that home game against Clemson. You don't win that, you gotta pull off another 13-5 SEC regular season or something miraculous like that, because you drop Indiana, you drop Xavier, and now you've only got one more quad one opportunity in the whole non-conference. So pressure is starting to mount quickly, at least for their at-large resume.
Well, and here's the problem too. SEC schedule starts at Mississippi State, Alabama home, Auburn home.
Oh God!
Although they don't get, I don't think they get. Well, they get State twice, but they don't get Alabama or Auburn twice, and they don't get Tennessee until the last game of the season. So you can argue a little bit there that maybe they got, because I don't think Kentucky's on there twice either. Not that there's like a super favorable draw,
right,
no matter who you play.
Oh, did he freeze up again?
Yes, that is an interesting thing to watch.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, gosh.
That's all right.
It's okay.
All right.
I'm sorry. I don't know why this is happening. It's been a thing this week out of the blue.
That's fine. Let's roll through tonight's games. Max, we did our Alabama-Houston preview, but any additional thoughts? Chris, you want to add any thoughts on this one? Okay, go ahead, Max.
Yeah, I told you about the line dropping, how it's going to influence where I think this game goes. I said if it was up closer to 5, I think that's a little bit disrespectful to the Tide. Vegas probably knows something. I'm going Houston. If it's closer to a pick'em, I think that's a little disrespectful to Kelvin Sampson. I'm going Alabama. Well, it is out to 4.5 right now, and I am going back on everything I told myself, and I'm staying with the Tide.
I knew you would.
Now, all jokes aside, the line's out to 4.5. It's a little bit concerning, all things considered. I think there's a good amount of money coming in on Houston. A lot of people are back in the Calvin Sampson bounce back spot, and for good reason. So I think this is going to be a heck of a game.
Yeah, I mean, we both picked Alabama, and I'll be honest, like at this point, every time you think you're going to jinx the SEC, just keep winning. And so, I mean, it's not your best bet right now is to back the SEC teams, because is it sustainable? They're going to lose some games somewhere along the line. Could start today, right? I mean, who knows? Maybe Auburn loses, maybe Alabama loses. A&M's got to play a tough game. So you just don't know. But I think it is kind of curious, like you said, for that number to be there. That one caught my attention where I was like, not sure I thought that was going to be to that level. So, Chris, hold on. Is Chris playing the role of Netflix during Jake Paul and Mike Tyson?
Oh, God.
I think he was. It's a little late for Halloween, Chris, but I think that's what he was playing here. But nonetheless, so yeah. What else, Max, on that?
No, I'm just furthering your point that when we can try to break down, the matchup any which way you like it. I think, we maybe have, as in the SEC, has maybe a slight edge at point guard. I think Uzan's still getting up to speed. And, you lose Jamal Shed. A generational program guy at Houston like that. It's going to take a little bit to get things going back up from that. But, I've watched enough Emmanuel Sharp to know that guy can hit 10 threes by himself tonight. I've watched enough LJ Cryer to know that guy can hit 10 threes by himself tonight. So I know that the SEC's got a little bit of momentum going right now, but there's a good amount of sharp money that's on this Houston side, and Calvin Sampson doesn't trip up too often. So cautiously optimistic here. It would be a massive win. It would be a massive win if after coming off of last night, the SEC can get the prime time again tonight. It'd be massive.
We mentioned the Western Kentucky game yesterday. I talked about Western Kentucky's going to get up and down the floor. I mean, the over-under on that one I'm seeing is like 164, so I think there will be some points scored in that one. But Texas A&M Oregon, Max, your squad, the Aggies in Las Vegas, they're going to play the afternoon game. Like I said, Alabama will play the one of the night games in Vegas against Houston, but the Aggies and the Ducks.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I don't like this matchup for A&M. And I'm probably the highest person on A&M in the world. Jackson Shellstad, Oregon's point guard, has not played good so far, and he just got his offense going. Well, he hasn't played well offensively, like a scoring role. He's been really good facilitating, just getting his groove going again. Nate Biddle, the center, is fantastic. They've got size, they've got depth, they've got shooting. It's just not a good recipe against an A&M team that just likes to muck it up. Oregon defensively, they are one of the slowest teams. They grind you out, and I feel like this is a game where A&M shoots like 4 of 22 from 3 and just never gets it going and is playing from behind the whole time. If A&M does win this game, I think they get Biddle in foul trouble and then can kind of just take control of the post. But I don't have a good feeling. Blake, what about you?
Yeah, this is one of those, like, Oregon, always laugh at the John Rothstein thing, right, of the Dana Altman. But, like, it's just – it's true. Like, he is someone where these kind of matchups, they worry a little bit. And I think
South Carolina, March Madness.
Yeah, right. I mean, this is kind of one where, like you said, I just want to see A&M. I mean, because the Ohio State game was at home, right? And I think that's what we talked about, like, last year. Some of those games, especially on the road, like, and look, it's a different season, but you just didn't know where you're going to get sometimes away from home for the Aggies. And, I think that's where we talk about kind of the getting to the free throw line is important for this team, even though the percentages hasn't been great. Like, they still are a team that needs to get to the free throw line, but we also know they're going to get a lot of offensive rebounds, those kind of things. So the percentages in this kind of matchup, I think, is crucial because of how they want to play and also knowing how Oregon is going to play. So, yeah, I'm with you. I don't love this matchup. I think Texas A&M should win the game, but I don't love the matchup. And anytime that is kind of the formula, not sure what to think.
Well, what's the line? It's Texas A&M -3, right?
Yeah, I was going to say they're 3 or 4.
3 or 4.
Something like that.
Is it out to 4? I saw, I think, 3.5 this morning.
3.5, yeah.
Yeah, 3.5. I think it comes down to, does Oregon hit their threes? Because A&M most likely not going to hit their threes. Okay, if they do, it's a bonus. If Oregon comes out, hits their threes, spreads the defense out, Farrell Payne's drawn out, Anderson Garcia's drawn out, I think Oregon wins this game. If they're not hitting their threes, though, they're probably walking into hell trying to rebound against that front court, and A&M probably looks really good doing it. So keep an eye on how Oregon shoots. Probably going to have a major impact on the game.
Yep, agreed. All right, well, that's your lineup for tonight. A&M, Oregon, Kentucky, Western Kentucky, Alabama, Houston, Auburn, North Carolina.
Great lineup. My gosh.
Just whatever you're doing tonight, just come on, folks. I mean, cancel the plans. Like, it's time to watch 2 heavyweight showdowns tonight. Houston, Alabama, Auburn, North Carolina. Again, if you're watching the Auburn, North Carolina game, you might want to find some caffeine because that one probably not going to start, my guess, until maybe 11:15ish, 11:30 Eastern. Because, again, the way these games have been going in Maui, you get an overtime game probably before that. That's just what you should probably expect at this point. And then we said Kentucky, Western Kentucky could be interesting. It's kind of an earlier tip, 5:30 Central. And then tomorrow you got some other interesting games. We know A&M's going to play Creighton tomorrow. We mentioned South Carolina, Virginia Tech, Alabama, Rutgers, Tennessee, UT Martin, Missouri, Lindenwood, Oklahoma, Providence, too. So we'll get into all that, though, Max. As we jump into it, as usual, we will have our reaction tomorrow. And
same time tomorrow?
unless Auburn and North Carolina are still playing, yes, we'll do same time tomorrow. And yeah, we'll share our thoughts on the two big games tonight, in addition to the other two, as we mentioned, as well, Kentucky, Western Kentucky, and Texas A&M, Oregon. So, yep, be sure to hit that subscribe button, guys. Hit the like button as well. Leave us a super chat on the way out if you want to do that. We appreciate you watching as always, and check out all the football stuff we got going on this week. My goodness. Lots of football videos to get you ready, preview videos for these big rivalry week games in football. So check them all out. Chris and Chase are working on those now. And so, again, guys, appreciate you watching, and we'll talk to you again soon here at Southeastern 16.